AI is a big topic right now in 2024 in this kind of post-chat GPT moment. But tell us a little bit about what you discovered in 2018 and, in how you found your way into this specific film.
Yeah, in 2018, we discovered a website stating, "Become virtually immortal." And we were like, what? And tried to find out what's behind and found out it's actually a fellow at MIT who founded a startup called EterniMe. So playing with this idea of eternal life. And he told us that already 30,000 people had signed up for this idea. And we started researching on that because we were just super curious. Before we had worked on The Cleaners, which was already dealing with technology. And so we were already familiar with this world, but we were excited about this new idea. And we found out actually this guy had to disappoint a lot of these people who were in existential crisis, who had hoped for a story of salvation here on Earth, but didn't find one. But then over the years, this technology progressed so fast. And now what was formerly maybe a cheap scam became a real thing. And now we have kind of Black Mirror, but real.
And Eternal Me became Eternal You, right? So instead of immortalizing yourself, this became a little bit more about people grieving for lost ones. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, our perspective on the topic changed a lot. As you mentioned, we started working on Eternal Me at the beginning because we were interested in people trying to immortalize themselves. But at the end, what was the biggest thing, or the thing we realized after a while, that there are so many people outside looking for new forms of grieving, dealing with death. And they not longer believe in afterlife with God, for example. And there's a so-called transcendental homelessness in dealing with these kinds of topics. And so they using such services, for example. And that was really touching for us in a way, and it really changed our mind, because first we were very skeptical about these companies, and we thought, what a cheap scam. But afterwards we realized we don't judge the users of these companies because they are looking for something. They're longing to have the last conversation, for example, with a deceased loved one. And who am I to judge them? Then we turned into Eternal You. And the main focus of our film is really the loved ones living on with the avatars of the deceased.
And early in the film, you do address the fact that there is potential uses for this to help people with the near impossible process of grief. But is it fair to say, because this is how I felt watching your film, that you became increasingly alarmed as this industry grew a little bit?
Yeah, it's kind of our process always to remain curious and not to be judgmental from the beginning. But in a way, we understood how much of a human experiment, like an open heart experiment, that is. And who takes responsibility for that? Actually, the engineers founding these companies, they don't. They feel like, oh, that's just the AI doing its thing. We are not responsible for what comes out. We are not responsible for the psychological consequences, which are massive, actually. These are people in vulnerable states. They hope for, they would give everything to have this one conversation again. And then they are pulled into this application, and they are kept in it. They keep on chatting and chatting and chatting to find out, for example, when the chatbot told one protagonist of our film, "I'm in hell." Of course, the person grieving wants to know what's behind. Might that maybe be true? Why does this AI think that? There must be more behind it. And of course, that keeps you chatting and it keeps you busy. And that is good for the business, because that is good for traffic and that makes money.
What was fascinating was the engineer behind that software very quickly couldn't understand why it was saying things like this. It didn't know where that level of consciousness came to tell this woman, her first love was in hell, right?
Yes.
And that's very important to really realize at the end, this is a black box. You don't know 100% what comes out. You cannot predict the output of these technologies. And as Moritz said, these people are vulnerable people. And if something like this happens, it can have severe consequences. And they do not get it. They don't feel the responsibility for that.
And it feels like and maybe it feels like this might also be how you structured your film in the terms of seeing the possibilities of this and then the danger. It feels like one of the things that becomes key to this is there's large ethical issues. There's a lack of responsibility and a potentially very lucrative market. And that not necessarily AI in of itself is the danger. It's those three things could be kindling gasoline in a match, right?
Exactly. Because what is so lucrative about AI is that this idea of a black box is so connected to the idea of a god or a goddess. Because we humans, we tend to project a lot onto things. And if you make this AI see magic and say, oh, actually, not even us as engineers know how it works exactly, it becomes like a superpower. And then, of course, a lot of people believe, oh, this AI must know more than we humans can understand. It's like believing in a god working on all of us. And of course, that is super seducing. And that is so dangerous, especially for people who are so deeply wanting this form of salvation.
The woman that we were talking about before, who was told her old lover was in hell, I think her name's Christy Apple. I wonder if you could talk
Angel,
a little... Yeah. I'm sorry, what?
Christy Angel.
Angel, sorry, yes. Could you talk for a moment, and we'll use her as an example because that one's the one that sticks in my mind the most, this element of the relationships you're building with these subjects and filming these incredibly monumental, intimate moments between a laptop and a woman. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, because I imagine there's an element of trust, but also how you're going to film something like that.
I mean, it took us a while to get in contact with all these users of these companies. The first step was to contact the makers of these services. And after a while, we needed to build a relationship of trust, because they knew, okay, we are tech-critical filmmakers. They knew we did the cleaners. And after a while, we asked them, okay, let us bring in touch with the first users of these technologies. We'd like to know them. And we had really a lot of calls, Zoom calls with a lot of users. And one sticked out. It was the first conversation with Christy. She's one of the users of Project December, and she told us her story, and we were so touched about everything. We were so moved how much does it to her using these kinds of services. And we, I would say, for the first time understood what an immense power these technologies have. And even if the technology is not really far developed, and even if there are problems and wrong answers, they are longing for see something in these kinds of chatbots. They are trying to think there's a there in these technologies. And that's why it is so dangerous, I would say. And we don't need to wait for the super AI is taking over. Even now, we are pretending to see so much in these technologies, and that's so interesting for us.
And if I may add just a little thing, what was really special for us was to be able to be there in the moment when she got back into it, like because she had already chatted with the AI version of her deceased first love, and she had this terrible experience, but she deeply wanted to go back. And this shows how much power this AI can have over people. And then she had a positive experience. She had this big relief. This AI told her, oh, I'm not in hell anymore. And she herself understood and was like irritated about herself, how much effect it had on her psyche, on her emotions, on everything. But her conclusion is not to say, oh, actually, I don't want that anymore. She says in the very end of our film, I could imagine to check in again. Yeah. And that is so, there is both in it. There is hope in it, and at the same time a big danger. And that's exactly what we tried to achieve with our film, to show there's both. There are both sides.
If you talk briefly, there's such a distinct choices in terms of the visual language, the sound. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about those in context of what you're trying to do in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, this is a big challenge for us as filmmakers to do a film about artificial intelligence, because it's super abstract, it's super hard to capture, and we need to find visual ways in how to present a story, because we don't want to see just humans in front of screens all day long. So we need to find a way how to tell the narrative, how to tell the story. And for example, we decided to use some drone shots as a new perspective on things. For example, we had a drone shot of a large cemetery in LA, which was kind of ones and zeros, was kind of a code text on the ground, which is we never had seen that before, like a perspective like this. And we tried to find symbols and new images which try to deal with our topic, for example. So it was really, really important for us to work with Tom Bergman and Konrad Waldmann, the DOPs of our film, and to find a strong visual language.
What about landing this film? Obviously, AI is taking off. I'm sure, like, even in 2023, you were seeing rapid changes, things that you wanted. That element of an ongoing story that you're documenting, but also, like, I want to be at Sundance 2024, you know, and that balance between how do you as filmmakers manage documenting something that's unfolding and landing a story that, you know, you need to have an end point to. Because you could keep going forever with this one, right?
Yeah, in the end, we believe our film is maybe not so much about AI as it is about a human desire and human ideology, which is implemented into AI. And what we were really proud of is that we were there in the very first moments when a new technology emerged. And it's not only AI emerging, but it's like there's an idea emerging. It's the idea to use this new AI to give people hope, to give people a completely new idea of afterlife. And we are like most proud, I would say, about being there when the first clients of these startups met their first doppelgangers. We are proud of characterizing the founders of these companies because this remains, this won't change. I think we captured kind of a character like Jason Rohrer, for example, the founder of Project December, this techno-libertarian spirit behind. And on the other hand, we captured, for example, the upcoming of a company like Soul Machines, like with heavy funding behind. And we are curious to see where this will lead to.